projecting.
But in the other practice areas too, let's say I'm a criminal defense lawyer and I have a DUI case. And I look and I say, all right, it's going to take this much work. I'm going to charge them 5,000 for it. How do I know I'm pricing it so I'm still going to make margin? Like what are some guardrails that attorneys could and should have? How do they even know what their KPIs are and what they should be? And, the example I'm giving is probably very simplistic, but, depending on the area of law and again, depending on how much they charge or how much they expect to get from the case, why do a case if you're going to break even or lose money? So that's why I wanted to get some sense of the range of margin.
Yeah, so you should definitely be shooting for at least 50% margin on a case like that. And then it really comes down to what's the structure of your firm beneath that. So obviously that's your variable cost because everything's set on an hourly basis. But if you can make 50% on a case like that, speaking generally, and then it really still comes down to what's your overhead below that to see what you'd actually be making.
So how do you work with law firms to identify what KPIs they should look at? What are some examples?
Yeah, so usually it's, taking the first step. So like I said, we work on the nuts and bolts side to make sure that first we're getting accurate numbers with whatever accounting system they're using. And then from there, we're looking at the basic KPIs and where they're running and where they can improve. So they might have a goal saying, we want to hit this amount of gross margin this year. So then we can run obviously like a build time versus what they're charging at each tier for their partners and their contractor attorneys and say, okay, if it's a dollar value, you're going to, at this certain rate, you're going to need to close this many cases. Otherwise, you're going to need to raise rates by this much. And then it would be a matter of determining, do you think how that's going to affect business? If you think you can raise rates and lose anything in terms of client velocity or client count, then that means you'd be priced too low and you need to move it up. So that big one that we see is that if you're not looking consistently at where your rates are, and if there's room, you'd be missing a lot of dollars because all of that effectively, you might lose some people, but effectively, if you can raise and not lose, that's money that's all flowing down to the line and immediately improving your margin without any incremental cost.